Yo, hey, this shit easy, nigga. Hey, all I'm talking about, nigga, I'm still out here trying to get it.
Contender Regime Boxing checking back in with y'all, man. What's happening? What's going on? So, I wanted to talk about Errol the True Spence Jr. and the evolution of his craft, his game, his overall boxing ability, his maturation process inside and out the ring, just looking at his growth as a fighter. And I think it's time that we start looking at Errol Spence differently. You know what I'm saying? I think, and this is for really the people who maybe they don't really have the eye to understand what's going on in that ring when Errol Spence Jr. is fighting. There's always been this notion about Errol Spence that he's a basic, robotic, come forward fighter who just uses pure size and strength and knocks guys out. You know, basically a non-thinking fighter that just come forward and muscle guys around. You know, there's all type of, slick remarks that people like to say about Errol Spence to try to discredit his actual boxing ability and his ring IQ. I feel like his ring IQ, his boxing IQ, his boxing ability is criminally underrated. Hence the title, criminally underrated. I mean, it's baffling that people view Errol Spence as just some basic robotic fighter. That lets me know that a lot of people don't really understand what's going on in the ring. So let's talk about this. If you go back to when Earl really first came on the scene, you know what I'm saying? And we hear this all the time about certain fighters that we feel like have great potential and have so many tools and skills, but they're so dominant at what they're doing that they haven't had a chance to bring out all of those tools, or they haven't faced the certain level of competition that's going to push them and bring those tools out, bring that extra gear, that extra level out of them in the ring. So you see, when Errol Spence fought, now if you've been following Errol Spence for a long time, I'm talking about even back in the Olympics, and even if you've been following them back in Golden Gloves and the national tournaments and stuff like that, then you know what I'm saying? But still, you really never know until they get on this level what they really can do. But sometimes, some people just have that eye and you can really understand. You're very keen on what you watching when these guys are fighting. So you look at Errol Spence, you see when he fought the Leonard Bundus of the world, the Phil O'Grecos of the world, just, pretty much he was showing precision and technical boxing. He was showing ring generalship in those fights, but just in a different way. Those guys really didn't have much to, make Errol Spence adjust. They didn't really have much to pull Earl out of his game plan or make him have to show you different tools. So he was pretty much just mowing those guys out of the way. But even then, he was using tactical aggression. He was using boxing ability, a great jab, great distance control, ring generalship. He was using all of those things, but it was just on a more subtle level. Those things didn't really jump out to you, not to most people. To me, I could recognize and I was able to identify that. But then you see him get in the ring with the Chris Algieri. You see how he cut off the ring, where it wasn't just a situation where where Earl was just, going toe to toe with a guy. You had a boxer in Chris Algieri who was, who's really a very skilled boxer when it comes to the footwork, the jab, the movement and things like that. A very cerebral fighter, Chris Algieri, and Earl was able to cut the ring off on him and get him up out of there. Then you seen him get in there with Kell Brook, where he was able to box with Kell Brook on the inside and in mid-range, and then slowly but surely chipped away at him and blasting him up out of there, using a lot of strength, power, and just mental power. Errol Spence puts mental and physical stress on his opponents. You know what I'm saying? Fighting Errol Spence is extremely demanding, both mentally and physically. You know what I'm saying? So you seen that in the Kell Brook fight. Then you look at Errol Spence in the Mikey Garcia fight. He showed everybody that, look, I can box off of the back foot. The first 4 to 5 rounds, Errol Spence boxed off of the back foot, especially the first 4 rounds. He boxed off the back foot, off the jab, used distance to let Mikey throw whatever he was going to throw. And then Earl, you know what I'm saying, throw his little jab, straight left, you know, and then a lot of the times, even though Earl was boxing off the back foot, he was still first. He would just let Mikey come forward, even if Mikey don't throw a punch. You know, Earl controlling the distance, and then he'll jump in, pop, and then get back, you know what I'm saying, using the pivots. He showed you the ability to box off the back foot. Even in a fight where he necessarily probably didn't have to do that, but he showed you that. You get into the Shawn Porter fight. He showed you that he can have a pure slugfest with you. You know what I'm saying? With a guy like Shawn Porter, who's known for getting gritty and just downright, you know, dirty on the inside, you know, and in a good way, though. You know what I'm saying? In a good way, to where he just makes it tough on you, is physically and mentally demanding. He makes you work. And you've seen Errol Spence persevere through that type of fight, getting a knockdown in the 11th round after going through 10 rounds of just pure attrition. You know what I'm saying? War of attrition and, you know, inside fighting, slugging, tactical inside fighting. You know, that was a very educated slug match at one of the, it was a fight of the year caliber type of fight. I thought that was the fight of the year. You saw that. Now you see Errol Spence put together one of the most beautiful displays of tactical aggression that I've ever seen in my life versus a prime, everything on the line. You know what I'm saying? If I lose this fight, my career might be over in terms of getting title championship opportunities. Danny Garcia, you fighting a guy that's in his prime with everything to gain and a lot to lose, but everything to gain in Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia is a very, very talented and intelligent fighter in the ring. A great counterpuncher, has a lot of power, has a lot of one-punch power. Errol Spence went into that fight and dominated Danny Garcia better than I've seen anybody do it. And the way he did it, I don't really believe that a lot of people understand what Errol Spence is doing. See, when people talk about boxing, people really equate that to moving backwards. People equate that to moving backwards and fighting defensively and trying to avoid punches just on the back foot. People don't really talk about boxing in the way that Errol Spence does it. Errol Spence puts so much pressure on you both physically and mentally. He comes forward and he literally puts on a master class while being extremely aggressive and coming forward with an educated, a relentless jab, quick, fast, powerful. Like I told y'all, he can use it in different levels. He can use it as a weapon, as a power shot. He can use it as a blinder to be able to set up the overhand left or set up the straight left. Or he can use it as just something that can offset you, just to put it in your face and make you have to readjust what you about to do because you kind of hesitant to throw something. He got that jab out there and it's a blinder as well. You know what I'm saying? So Errol Spence Jr. is really changing the game when it comes to, you know, boxing, when it comes to how you have to look at boxers and certain fighters' skill set. You can't put Errol Spence in a box. Errol Spence Jr. is a complete fighter. I just ran off a list of different fights and different styles that he's displayed, and the way he does it is very unique and is different from anybody else that I could think of in the sport of boxing right now. Errol Spence Jr. might be the most complete fighter in the game. When you think about the fact that he showed you he can box a master class off the back foot. He showed you that, at least for the first 4 rounds of Mikey Garcia. And then I would say after the 5th round, he really started to press forward. And the 5th round on up in the Mikey Garcia fight looked like what he did versus Danny Garcia. But what he did versus Danny Garcia was more impressive because his defense was flawless. I mean, for him to be able to come forward like he did and still be able to dip slip and roll those punches. He was able to get his jab out there, throw his overhand left, and still be cognizant of Danny Garcia's counters, be able to get out of the way, slip, and then stay. His leverage and his distance is so on point that he's able to stay right there in position to be able to go straight back to it and go to the body. Even when Danny did land some decent shots, some that were, not flush and grazing Earl was still able to get right back to the game plan, get right back to pressing Danny, keeping him uncomfortable, and basically putting on a master class coming forward. Using it, you don't see anybody else in the sport of boxing fighting like this. You don't see nobody else putting on a master class while being extremely aggressive and coming forward. That's why most of he does have one punch knockout power, but he's not a knockout artist. Errol Spence is a complete fighter. He's a boxer puncher, but he's a complete fighter. He can do it all. So most of his knockouts come from an accumulation of ass whooping. To be quite honest with you, most of his knockouts come from him putting so much pressure on you that you really ain't got no choice but to, let your hands down at the wrong time. He gonna hit you in your head. Or you done got hit in your head so much you got your hands up and he started attacking that body. His assault offensively is so versatile and so diverse. It's like you really don't know what the fuck to prepare for, because he gonna fuck your body up and he gonna fuck your head up. You know what I'm saying? And it's really so difficult to prepare for Errol Spence Jr. That gotta be one of the most difficult things, preparing for Errol Spence Jr. Because what you gonna do? You gonna try to outbox him? Well, he gonna put unlimited pressure on you behind an educated jab, and you might get knocked out. And if you don't get knocked out, he gonna make you look like you don't belong in the ring with him, because he's outworking you. And on top of that, he's controlling the pace of the fight. He is the ring general. He's making you move where he wants you to move. So even if he don't knock you out, you still gonna lose the rounds. You know what I'm saying? And then it's still a good chance that you might get caught. You might get your ass, you might get knocked out. You know what I'm saying? What you gonna do, come forward to him and try to brawl with him? You might get knocked the fuck out. You know what I'm saying? And then he can still box you on the back foot if he want to. But the fact that he's able to fight with so much intelligent pressure, man, is something that I really never seen before. It's something that I really, not on a consistent basis and not on this level to where Errol Spence is doing this right now. Most people, when I see put on that show, that type of display of skill is when they moving backwards, you know what I'm saying, and being more defensive as opposed to offensive. Errol Spence Jr. is just on a whole nother level. He show you he can fight at any distance, at any level, and he show you that I would say, I can't point out any fight where Earl didn't control the pace of the fight. I can't point out any fight where Earl didn't control the pace of the fight. You know what I'm saying? Every fight I've ever seen him in, he controls the pace of the fight. That's dangerous. And that's very, very difficult to defeat. That's very difficult to overcome. You can't even control the pace of the fight with this guy. Each opponent is literally most likely gonna have to fight Errol Spence Jr.'s pace. The only way you can beat Errol Spence Jr., you're gonna have to hurt him. I said that a million times. What I said about Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford. In both breakdowns that I did, we done broke that down a million times, but in both breakdowns that I did, why I think Errol Spence Jr. beats Terrence Crawford. And I think that's still a great fight, 50-50 fight, but this with anybody. You're not gonna outbox Errol Spence Jr. You have to hurt him. You have to hurt him, because it's hard to win rounds on Earl. He throws too many punches. He's gonna control the pace of the fight. His jab is, the jab is something, that's one weapon that you gotta get over. And that's tough, because that's like Lennox Lewis said, it's the easiest punch to throw. It's the quickest punch you can throw. You know what I'm saying? It's the punch that you're gonna see the most, pretty much the whole fight. So you gotta find a way to get over the jab. And then not to mention everything else that come behind it. And did you see Errol Spence Jr.'s defense in the Danny Garcia fight? Oh my goodness. Errol Spence Jr. defense was already underrated in my opinion, but the way he was able to evade punches coming forward like that, that's phenomenal, man. That's crazy. And it's going to be really hard to beat Errol Spence. Like I said, you got to hurt Errol Spence. That's the only way I can see you beating Errol Spence, man. You got to hurt him. And if you can't hurt him, you ain't going to win no decision. It's going to be hard to win a decision on Earl. It's going to be hard, man. You know, so y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments, man. How do y'all feel about Errol Spence Jr.'s performance versus Danny Garcia and his evolution and growth since he really came on to the scene, man, and his potential going forward? Like, he only gonna get better. Errol Spence Jr. is only gonna get better, man. So I'm interested to see how y'all feel about, you know, what I've been noticing in Errol Spence and how Errol Spence is viewed as a fighter, you know, in the sport of boxing. And I think this changes how we view other fighters who might have some of these type of skills. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to start looking at this shit different. Errol Spence is a totally different fighter from everybody else that I really see boxing right now. You know what I'm saying? And I think that really put him on another level. So y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments, man. Contender regime, boxing, I'll holler at y'all boys, man.